Colin is an attorney who got his law degree from Creighton University, but very relevant to this conference is that he got a Bachelor's of Arts from St. Louis University in Environmental Studies, which I'm very proud to announce, since that degree is in our department. And then he also got a master's in sustainable development law, and he's had an extensive career in promoting sustainable development and sustainable ways of life. His current position is director of an organization we heard a little bit about last night, and he'll tell us more about it, the Mississippi River Cities and Towns Initiative. So please join me in welcoming Colin Wellenkamp.
Good morning, everyone. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with you this morning. Thank you so much. I also want to thank David Webb and Jack and his whole team for allowing us to be part of your conversations. We are an association of U.S. mayors on the Mississippi River, so what am I doing up here? I'm not a mayor, but Mayor Creighton represented us last night at the Climate Summit during the keynote event, talking about a little bit about us and some of the impacts that we're dealing with. And what I was asked to do is sort of, blank walls are scary. Hang on a second, there we go. It just begs for stuff, right? And the world would stop without PowerPoints, I'm told. So I brought one. My mayors are actually very PowerPoint adverse. We don't do a lot of PowerPoints. They like to kind of get up and be dynamic and really talk from the heart. And they are very committed to what we're doing around the Mississippi River. Boundaries, laws, technology, great tools, but they're not going to protect water. They're not going to protect our rivers. They're not going to sustain them. People are. And this all comes down to how does our aquatic resources impact people, our quality of life, and why should we care, and what can we learn from that exchange? So there's sort of a pattern with climate conversations, right? Bad things are happening. If we don't do something, we're all doomed. And with the Mississippi River, the story is a little bit more different than that, actually. It is, as that resource, there's a lot already being done, and there's a lot that has been done. So we're not doomed? Nope, we're still doomed. It's just so big. It's 5,000 kilometers of waterway, and through 10 states in the middle of a continent. So the scales that we're talking about, and there's also no other river like it on Earth. The closest one is the Yangtze, which the scientific community has designated as the most ecologically compromised aquatic body on the planet, the Yangtze River. It has been changed so much that even it is not like this wonderful resource we have just down the street. It is our mayors like to call it our lifeblood. So I was born, as Dan said, I was born and raised in St. Louis. SLU is my alma mater. I was actually the first to graduate from SLU with a degree in environmental studies. A lot of conversations around, are you sure you want to do this type stuff. That was back in 1995. And also the first to graduate from George Washington School of Law with a Master's of Law in Sustainable Development. Also a similar conversation. You sure you want to do this? Is there a paycheck at the end of all this debt? Yeah, I'm going to run a nonprofit. And I didn't tell them that, and I'm glad I didn't. Because then they would have said, okay, why don't we get you into economics law? There's actually a lot of economics in what we do. So we're 85 mayors on the Mississippi River. And this is what we're dealing with. It is the largest navigable system. The Mississippi River is over half a mile wide in a lot of places. It has the largest global footprint of any river in the Western Hemisphere. It is one of the largest tapped sources of fresh water on Earth. Rivers themselves are actually the most tapped freshwater sources on the planet, and yet they account for only 0.0016% of the world's freshwater supply. Well, then how can they be the most tapped source of surface water? Well, it's because they wind their way through all these populated areas and everybody puts a straw in and gets some, including us on the Mississippi. So how much are we talking about? 600 million gallons plus. That's on a low day when people aren't very thirsty, coming out of the Mississippi River to go into us. It went into me this morning. It's going into all of you right now. And it went into my little girl. It's also going into a lot of soda, a lot of wine, and a heck of a lot of beer up and down the Mississippi. Not just Anheuser-Busch, but the burgeoning microbrewery industry, which is this is upwards of 30% of the industry now. Most tapped river in the United States is the Mississippi River, and actually we have no protections around that whatsoever. The Great Lakes is the most tapped freshwater resource in the Western Hemisphere, but it has the Great Lake Compact passed by Congress. It protects that water resource. No one can come in and tap the Great Lakes water resource without all of the jurisdictions around the Great Lakes unanimously approving that. So it is a very protected resource. We don't have that for the Mississippi River, and yet look at its footprint compared to the Great Lakes. So this is a little bit about us and our association. We actually started in Washington, D.C. In 2012. This audience will appreciate this. We started on February 12th, which is the feast day of St. Julian the Hospitaller. St. Julian the Hospitaller is the only patron saint for rivers. This was not by design. I found this out 8 weeks later. This just happened to be, but it didn't happen to be. I think it all came together that way for a reason, and St. Julian has been a great lobbyist for us through the universe. He has really helped us very much and propelled our association to new heights. That coupled with all that work with all of our mayors. So that's how we sort of view it, and our 85 mayors are led by 2 co-chairs. One of our founding mayors was Mayor Francis Slay of St. Louis. Mayor Slay and I go way back. I mentioned I'm from St. Louis. So when I got this gig, I'm sitting in Washington, D.C., and the Walton Family Association that gave us our start, Walton Family Foundation gave us our start and gave us a check to get going. They said, okay, Colin, go get your mayors. Okay, get my mayors. I knew Mayor Slay personally, so I called him up and I said, Mayor, this thing's getting started. Can you join? And he said, sure, Colin. Okay, I just want you to know you're the only mayor on this as of right now. Is that okay? Sure, just let me know how it comes together. And it was fantastic. He joined, he didn't really ask me any questions, which worried me a little bit, and we took off from there. And now we're 85 mayors. There are 124 mayor-led municipalities on the Mississippi River proper on the main stem, but we have 85, so we're getting there. This is a little bit of an economic profile of what we're dealing with this grand resource. The revenue, the $500 billion in revenue, the 1.5 million jobs. What is that footprint? So that's just the river valley that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the 10-state corridor, which is all the 10 states. I'm talking about just 1 or 2 counties either side directly adjacent to the Mississippi. We call that the Mississippi River Valley, or the main stem corridor. If I call it the 10-state corridor, that means all to into the state boundaries. So if we move this out to a few more counties, those numbers go up significantly. Top 3 economies on the Mississippi River are in that order. Manufacturing is number 1 by quite a bit. And it is water-intensive manufacturing. I showed you before that we had about 600 million gallons per day is taken out of the Mississippi River for drinking supply. 60 to 80 billion gallons per day is taking out for manufacturing. What are they making with all that? Well, all that stuff that they sell in the beverage industry, and then metals, processing and washing, chemical processing and manufacturing. The greatest concentration of chemical manufacturing in the United States is on the Mississippi River between Baton Rouge and New Orleans. And then paper, pulp manufacturing, and then we use the water to float all this stuff, right, to market, especially the commodities. The port of southern Louisiana is the largest inland river port in the country by volume, one of the largest in the world because it is a commodities gateway. I'll get to that in a second. So how much are we moving on that river? Well, all that, including, if you can imagine that, 40% of all agricultural output moves on the Mississippi River. So everything being produced from Pittsburgh to the border of Idaho is moving on the Mississippi River. And then the grain output, and this river is responsible for our only trade surplus. And then the 50 to 70% of rice, soy. So I had a real interesting day the morning that the president of China announced soybeans as a tariff target. I really wanted to go into the witness protection program by about 2 p.m. that day. 100% for many of our farmers, what they produce in soybeans is sold to China. I had a 3-generation farm call me up out of Arkansas. The mayor of Helena, Arkansas, was a guy on the phone. He said, "Colin, I need you to talk to somebody for a minute. Hang on a second." Who? Too late. John King grandpa, John King son, and John King grandson. I talked to all 3. And all 3 of them sell 100% of their product to China. And John King grandson was very upset because his grandpa was real upset and his daddy was real upset. He said, "Colin, I don't know what we're going to do. This is fun and games to these folks. But what people don't understand is just the political bluster back and forth between China and the United States makes the price drop or spike. They don't have to do anything, just talk about it. We had ships turning around in the middle of the Atlantic to come back full of soy because of the talk. It was just talk. Still is, thank God. So when we're talking about the Mississippi River, and we're talking about its potential, what it provides, we're talking about real lives, real people at a generational scale. That's what's at stake. This is the basin I talked about from Pittsburgh to the border of Idaho. It's 31 states. It's the largest river basin on Earth. It's producing the most food of all the food-producing river basins on Earth. It has the most untapped capacity to produce more food than any other food-producing basins on Earth. So we are blessed with this magnificent resource. That's just a tally of what it is. That's $164 billion in ag exports from the valley. That's not the basin, that's just the valley. And then what we're all here talking about, right, is, okay, so what's this got to do with climate? Quite a bit. So we are an acute climate impact zone. The entire river valley is an acute climate impact zone, from Bemidji, that just got out of a drought, thank God, all the way down to New Orleans that got hit by Hurricane Katrina. So how much are we feeling it? Well, we're feeling it to the sum of about $200 billion in climate impact since 2005. It's the most expensive climate impact zone in the country so far. However, we believe once we do the final tally for Puerto Rico and Texas, they're going to exceed that. They're going to exceed where we are. So they'll actually, 2017 will be the most expensive natural disaster year in recorded history for our continent. 100, 200, 500, 1,000-year flood events, right back to back to back. The mayor of Baton Rouge lost her own house to the 1,000-year floods of 2016 in August. More rain fell on the city of Baton Rouge in August of 2016 than flows through the Mississippi River in 18 days. And that rain fell out of the sky in 79 hours. So it's as if someone diverted the Mississippi River into the suburbs of Baton Rouge for 18 days and then put it back. That's how much flooding. Where did that come from? Well, right, I don't care how good your flood control system is. If that happens to your city, you're going to flood. But what made it a lot worse was that was what's called a backwater flood. That water used to be connected to the Mississippi River. Development, building of neighborhoods, communities, things we like, places we live, locked all that water away. It could no longer drain to the main channel. It just sat in people's backyards and streets and front yards and then above their houses. The mayor of St. Gabriel, Louisiana, who is one of our co-chairs, Mayor Lionel Johnson, parts of his city were underwater for 21 days. Unprecedented in recorded history of his city. So this is to make you feel good. This is what the Corps of Engineers gave us this. This is what the continent would look like with no ice left. There's no more ice on the planet. So these are the shorelines, and this is the Mississippi River Valley. The mayor of Osceola, Arkansas is super excited about this map because he gets beachfront property. And he will become the largest inland river port, one of the largest inland river port potentially in the world if this happened. He's not really happy about this. He's pretty sad. We're all pretty sad. This is not fresh water, right? So this is all salt water. So we would lose our half of our freshwater resource. We're actually more concerned about this, though. We are concerned about floods, and we get hit over the head with a baseball bat in terms of floods, but this is worse, drought. So what's down there on the bottom of the screen is August 21st, 2012, the height of the 50-year drought that we just went through. And then above is where the drought monitor is as of this morning. A few days ago, as you can see, we are now out of drought in almost the entire Mississippi River Valley except just around Muscatine, Iowa. But in 2012, the Mississippi River closed in 3 different places, 3 different times, and every time the river closes anywhere, it's $300 million of lost economic activity to the country, per closure per day. Droughts are insidious. You don't see them coming. You don't know it's there until you're in the thick of it. Too late after that. They can last a really long time. Floods, hurricanes, weather events, you can see them way out on the horizon. They're only there for a moment and then they leave. Droughts and their impacts continue on, and the impact area is much more significant. And the ripple effects to the economies are deeper and longer lasting. I'll give you an example. We had 500-year floods along the Mississippi River in 1/3 of the length of the river in 2011. That was a grand total cost of actual losses, according to the reinsurance industry, of about $4.16 billion. 1 year later, we had that. That price tag was $35 billion for the drought. And that is just actual losses. Take into account ripple effects, displacement of populations, and the death rate. Death rate? You had a death rate for the drought? We did. We had a measurable death, all death rates are measurable, but it was a measurable impact on the economy. It was from suicides from the drought. Farmers committing suicide. Watching their farms and their ranches and their grasslands dry up in front of them, and there's nothing they could do, and there was no help, because there is no national drought contingency plan. Until now. After this, we actually developed one. We are developing one with NOAA, and Mayor Gallagher of Bettendorf, Iowa, just presented to the National Drought Council, which we got into the 2014 Farm Bill, to be established in order to devise a national drought resiliency plan so that we don't have that happen. It's going to happen. It's absolutely going to happen. It's not if, it's just when, but maybe it won't cost us $35 billion and maybe we won't lose lives. I'm going to end on this. So I do, just talking about how important the water resource is of the Mississippi River, our mayors have been able to trace, this this was not by inspection. This was something we sort of had to get to and come to a learning aha moment. It starts with an E. Epiphany. I knew there's a feast day about it. When we came up with this epiphany is we can link clean, fresh water to every aspect of our economy. If you have clean, fresh water in your river, well, then you must be practicing sustainable agriculture. Otherwise, that river would be compromised by nutrient loading. If you have clean, fresh water, then you must have a sustainable manufacturing platform in place. Otherwise, it would be full of toxins and metals. If you have clean, fresh water, then you have a market differentiator for your manufacturing because they have to spend less money cleaning it themselves. And you have a wonderful clean water drinking source, and you have tourism. Because no one wants to swim, boat, hunt, fish, and paddle. And I mean, when I say paddle, I mean the big cruise boats in dirty water that's smelly and green and gooey. So all of these things, if we achieve clean, fresh water, we achieve a healthy, robust economy. And in order to do a big piece of that is recognizing the Mississippi River's place in the global commodity market. We have tremendous power and influence in this region because of what the Mississippi River's global footprint is. Just very quickly. These are the major food-producing regions of the world. We're number one. The Yangtze River Valley is number two in terms of food that we eat. Europe is number three. They produce other products, not necessarily, they're farm products, but we don't eat them. So we're blessed with the most capacity. The other major food-producing river basins on Earth are the Ganges, the Indus, the Rhine-Danube, the Nile. These are some pictures of them. The Ganges supports a population of 430 million people over the population of the United States, relying on one river. And the Paraná and the Plata River system in South America. South America is, this whole area right here is our major commodities competitor. This is, we signed a food security and water security international agreement in Paris in 2015. That's the mayor of Dubuque, that's the mayor of Natchez, that's the mayor of St. Paul, jerk. That is the Secretary of Agriculture for Ghana. That's the North American UN Director, and Mr. Borsch, very great guy. He's the Executive Director of the Rhine-Danube Commission. So in Europe, we're blessed with our river goes through one country. Most rivers in the world go through many countries. So it's these international bodies that govern them. This is the Great Rivers of the World meeting in Rome, Italy. Not a bad place to go for a meeting if you can do it. And this is Mayor Constant of Gretna, Louisiana, representing the Mississippi River. All the major food-producing rivers of the world were there except the Indus and the Ganges. This is the mayor of St. Gabriel, Louisiana, our co-chair in Bonn, Germany, at the U.S. Climate Pavilion. Again, bringing more into food and water security and the stakes that we have. The Mississippi River is the top of the food chain. I don't mean that as a pun, I mean that literally in terms of production. So it's actually, this is a great place of leadership to be in. You know that guy. This guy is the mayor of Davenport, Iowa, our other co-chair, Mayor Klipsch. That was taken in Bonn. And then finally, this is the Chief Sustainability Officer for Walmart. This is the Chief Sustainability Officer for Kellogg. We are working with them to generate food and water security by incentivizing sustainable agriculture in the Mississippi River Basin. We want to get to the point where Walmart and Kellogg aren't buying stuff off the acreage unless it's produced a certain way. And those ways have water security and soil sustainability as priorities. So we are working with them on how do we engineer that marketplace to offer those incentives. You know this guy. Senator Roy Blunt, he's co-chair of the Mississippi River Caucus in the U.S. Senate. He has been a champion for the Mississippi River. He has helped us with water security grants, Marine Highway Grant Program, the Pre-Disaster Mitigation Grant Program. Was it $22 million for the whole country? It's now at $249 million for the whole country, thanks in large part to Senator Blunt. That's the mayor of Cape Girardeau, you know that guy. So that's the kind of things that we are putting together. We have a platform, a natural infrastructure platform that we introduced to the White House and Congress in March to make this river and our valley and its impact on the global commodity supply chain sustainable so that we can keep this freshwater resource for future generations. And we believe that the key to doing that is achieving clean fresh water. Thank you.